Okay, so this is something that does actually relate to us. I actually think if Trump does get into office and starts implementing tariffs, we are going to see Chinesium optics go up in price quite a bit, and which will probably help to push the U.S. market a little bit, but it's going to take a long time for it to catch up.
Or they'll package those factories up and bring them here.
Yeah, I mean, but that's going to take time. It's still going to take 6 months to a year at least, if not 2 to 5, to catch up to where it was, or it may never even get back to where it was.
I'll never be able to afford a Trijicon.
I think there's enough like perceived value or just perceived like societal benefit to buying American stuff that the prices don't have to change that much before people decide to start supporting American again. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like what people always say that they want is like a middle market option, you know, where it's like, I would love to buy a red dot that was like maybe not Aimpoint T2 quality, but like pretty close, but a little bit cheaper, but it was made in America and I could feel good about it. And then your only option is a fucking Trijicon MRO HD, which is pretty bad, or an MRO, which is dog shit, or an EOTech, which is expensive as fuck and has weird battery problems. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you could no longer get whatever, you know, Holosuns for extremely cheap, all of a sudden the Holosuns were like kind of close to the Trijicon and the Trigicon's kind of close to the Aimpoint, a lot of people would probably manage to talk themselves up into the Trijicon offering. But I don't know, like Holosun has, I think, recently started charging for some of their premium optics almost Trijicon money. Like what is a EPS cost? Close to RMR money. Yeah, it's so much better than an RMR. You'd be stupid to buy an RMR right now. How much will those prices be affected? I don't know.
Well, if what he's saying is 100%, it's going to be like ridiculous. So that's going to punch like a base level Holosun 400 series optic up to like $300, right? Which is now a stone's throw away from some of these more mid-tier options. And I wonder if SIG is going to be able to get away with like their 4 series, which is like kind of made in America, some of them. I wonder if they're going to be able to get away with keeping those really competitive if the Holosuns and Romeo 5s and stuff like that.
Some of those components will be more expensive, but then again, you'll have other American components in it to offset that cost. Right. If you really break it down, and I think also if we go into a slump where we're not having this massive panic, it will force the industry to do some innovation. And then it will open up the, hey, shit, now we actually can be kind of competitive. We're not going to get undercut. I think the market
I agree.
The industry will go after that mid-tier now because they don't have to compete against fucking China. Yeah. And they're going to get incentives to start fucking producing that here. I think it's great, period. Like, at the end of the day, man, it's the only thing that we fucking build in America anymore is guns, so let's just do better at it.
Yeah. I recently bought a 507 comp from Holosun, and I had like this weird moral dilemma of like, do I spend the $650 for an SRO for one of my competition handguns? And like that's a lot of clams for a red dot. And the 507,
especially a bad one.
Yeah,
that's the problem, right?
And the 507,
I would love this to be the funniest shit in the world to me. If like all of a sudden you're posting on Reddit with your Trijicon RMR and people are like, what, couldn't afford the EPS? Fucking 4. Like mid-tier snob starts being like, oh, you can't afford the Holosun? What a bitch. Like, why don't you pick up some more shifts at the Wendy's instead of you fucking scrub instead of just like settling for the RMR?
A lot of the guys who shoot USPSA and the clubs that I go to, they're all running 507 comps, and it's really funny to see the dynamic you get when people show up with like EPSs and they actually treat those like they're way better optics than the guys who are running acros and stuff at the range. And there's all sorts of stuff for that as well.
Well, that's fair because the acro is a really bad optic and the EPS is an insanely good optic.
You know, and when you consider the price difference too between the two, it's there's that big dilemma of like, I kind of want to support American, but I also just want an optic that's good at the same time right now.
Right. I'd love to support American manufacturing. I don't really give a shit about Swedish manufacturing. I don't think I like Sweden at all.
America, those probably won't go up because they're not going to fucking tax the Swedes unless they try to like maybe undo the chicken tax or some shit so we can get fucking Toyota trucks again.
Well, go talk to a Swedish person, and to them, Aimpoint isn't a premium optic; it's just an optic because they don't have the markup that we have, right? Like to them, the acro is the most affordable red dot because they have this system already. I think they already have import tariffs and shit in Sweden and other like almost every country does this. We don't because we're cool. But yeah, like to them, the acro is a no-brainer because it's the most affordable optic and it's pretty good. To us, the acro is one of the dumbest purchase decisions you could possibly make, and the only reason you're doing it is because you either still buy into this weird, bizarre myth of like not Chinese supremacy, like anything not Chinese must be better because it's not Chinese, which is hilarious, or because you're like, I just can't see myself supporting China because their politics are so odious. I'll support Sweden. You're like, well, wait. You don't seem to like their politics either. So what are you fucking talking about here, buddy?
Also, not even like geopolitics. There's also just the tactical dude bro marketing around that optic alone.
True. Very true.
If you don't have an acro killed in the streets.
That's right.
If you do have an acro killed in the streets because you pull it out and you're like, why is it full of water? And you're like, that's just how they ship from the factory, moron. They're all full of water. That's the aim point promise. Aim point quotes. It's full of water. That's how they market them.
That is one of the funny things. Is one of the few times I've been handed an aim point acro. It was dead. It was
also the battery life sucks. I mean, like fucking at this point, aim point's byline might as well be like, it's bad and the battery life is short. Sorry, not sorry. Like that could be their official company tagline. Yes, our optics are worse. Yes, they cost more. We don't care.
Cool dudes use them, so you spend money on it. It's like Novesk marketing. But
our flag looks like something you'd see in Hearts of Iron 4. You're still gonna buy it.
No, that Novesk video for the Halloween marketing was the weirdest shit I ever watched.
Dude, I didn't post this. I wanted to, but I didn't post this. Let me see if I can pull this up. But I thought this might be a little too spicy for me to say on Instagram. But,
you should look into the John Novesk situation.
God's angriest reviewer. Yeah.
I didn't post that. I thought about it, but I didn't post that one. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, Hop, I think you get this comment probably all the time, but people in Europe asking you about like Strike Eagles and stuff like that, because to them it's a mid-tier option because it's like $600 or $800. And so they're like, hey, should I go with a Strike Eagle or should I go with, XY optic? Because to them, they have to pay the same imports. So to them, those optics are crazy expensive.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really big things is like, I feel like I tend to attract a slightly more international audience than a lot of gun tubers because I talk about like weird shit or like historical shit. And that's a more general interest thing, right? If you just talk about like ARs and night vision and stuff like that, you're just going to get an American audience because nobody else can interact with that. So I feel like I do get some of the European commenters or whatever, but it is so much different over there that I'm like, hey, look, I don't know if you should take anything that I say seriously if you live in Europe, because I don't know, like price is so important to me. It always has been. It's like Generation 2 night vision in the United States has always been a dodgy proposition because Generation 3 night vision is better and it's barely more expensive.
Yep.
If you're in Europe, Generation 3 night vision does not exist. So trying to chase it is insane. You should just buy Australia, same thing, or maybe Canada even. It's like the value proposition has to matter. And so, yeah, like you see that. And that's another weird like piece of little psychology where someone sees a price tag and they draw a lot of conclusions, which is why I think people think the acro is good. They're like, that's expensive. It's probably good. And you're like, no, it's expensive because it's made in Sweden and their fucking minimum wage is $48 an hour. Whatever, like that's why it's expensive. It's a piece of garbage, but it's expensive because it's expensive to make. It doesn't matter, that kind of stuff doesn't matter. But yeah, people will probably see that, and it's like to us, a Strike Eagle is $200 on sale. You're like, it's a piece of garbage. To them, a Strike Eagle is $600 on sale, and they're like, it has to be good then, right? They wouldn't be charging that much if it wasn't good. I'm like, no, sometimes stuff just costs stuff. Like I don't know, man.
What's funny with that is that your government is literally taking 50% of that in tariffs before even sale tax or anything else like that. So
yeah,
but yeah, no, I'm playing around with a Gen 2 unit from AGM, which I think you did a review on like 4 years ago or something when I originally watched that video, and I basically came to the same conclusion. Something in there is like night vision is actually one of the things that has a very good price to performance ratio versus optics. So like optics, if you spend twice as much on an optic, you might get something that's like 10% better. But with night vision, like if you spend $2,000 on a crappy 2+ tube or $2,500 on a slightly better tube, you're actually getting a proportional performance increase for not that much more money. So it's still not perfect, but the price to performance ratio goes up a lot further than on like guns or optics or stuff like that.
One of the other things that, people, again, this is the difference between American and Europe or European markets, I guess. Generation 2 night vision in countries where they're like prevented from developing Generation 3 night vision because it's considered an American trade secret, I guess, or whatever, or state secret. The current production, the current generation Photonis Gen 2 Plus tubes have solved the gain problem. That was the big deal, right? Was that Photonis tubes had their image quality was amazing. Their auto gating was fast as hell. Like they were really good tubes, but their gain numbers were way below Generation 3 units. And they're not anymore. Photonis's current flagship Gen 2 tubes are, as far as I can tell, basically as good as Gen 3 American tubes, or your Israeli maybe. But like that doesn't mean you can get them here. But if you're in Europe, you can get them. So it's like if I were to say like, hey, based on the American perspective, it's probably smart to save up a little bit more and get a Generation 3 device than a Generation 2 device. But in Europe, that's not the case because you have to pay a ton of money and try really, really hard to get your hands on Generation 3, whereas current Generation 2 Plus is as good as Generation 3 because they just worked at it. Like they just put the fucking money in and they made really, really good tubes. I haven't seen those tubes for sale in the United States, which again is this whole like cyclical problem of people being like, but I heard that Generation 2 tubes have caught up to Generation 3. And you're like, yes, they have in other markets, but in our market, you can't get them. So ignore it. Don't take that fact into account because it's not true here. It's true there. It's not true here. But yeah, also like people do make the other mistake of comparing a Generation 2 device in a shitty housing with shitty glass to a Generation 3 device in mil-spec CVS 14 housing, Carson glass, etc. And they're like, damn, look at this distortion. These intensifier tubes suck. And you're like, intensifier tubes don't do that. That's optics. That's glass. Mm-hmm. I have had some pretty amazing experiences looking through a Photonis Gen 2 Plus Echo tube in a PVS 14 housing.
Yeah.
Once you accommodate for the variables, they look fucking sick. The biggest problem is still that the tubes available here, the Gen 2 Plus tubes available here, have much lower gain numbers.
Well, I would say also like it's the body and the glass too, right? Because the AGM unit kind of sucks in terms of the glass isn't very good. It halos out very fast, and the body isn't like fantastic. So there are like better bodies and glass you can get on the market. That again, if you price out your intensifier tube, you buy it as a unit, or you buy it pre-built by somebody or whatnot. Spending a little bit more money gets you not only, even if the image intensifier is the same, you get better glass and a better body, which proportionally it still performs like again better than a lot of other things. When we're talking about like price to performance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you've also seen the new Chinese tubes that are coming in. The tubes themselves are pretty decent, but they're almost always slapped into housings with bad glass. I think it's Cold Harbor, because again, they're Canadian, so they cannot get or sell Generation 3. But what they can get is Carson glass or whatever RPO or something. Like they can get like good quality optics. They can get decent quality housings. They can take these Chinese intensifier tubes, put this whole thing together, and then turns out the intensifier tube's pretty good. Analog night vision, even old generation analog night vision, is still so much better than anything digital can pull off, at least for the price. People have made claims about like IVAS and some other shit. But yeah, like what you generally get is that sort of the reduction of people saying like, you know what, Generation 2 is just not worth it. You're like, well, hold on. Price matters. And when you say something like Generation 2 just doesn't perform, it makes me suspect you haven't used it yet, because the performance between digital Generation 2, Generation 3, there is a massive leap between digital and Generation 2, and then there's a small leap between Generation 2 and Generation 3. And is Generation 2 worse? Yes, but you buy worse shit all the time, like because money is important to almost everybody, especially in Biden's America, right?